comics are stupid.
No Harry Potter movie is good.
And you're like, give me the Snyder Cut. Oh, sorry, just walk in front of you here. I'm gonna put my popcorn down. Oh, sorry, gotta put this here.
Universal needs to sue Sony.
Hey, I'm an idiot. I was fired from Fox. Let me go.
I'd like actually to see Venom just crush Spider-Man.
We're back for episode 14 of the series. I was lost count there for a second, and we're joined by an Emmy Award-nominated VFX artist, Chris MacLean. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing well, actually. So how did you kind of get into the film industry?
Well, it's kind of a long story, but I started as a graphic designer back basically right out of high school. I went to college for a year, but that didn't go as I would have liked. So I started just working as a graphic designer, and then we did that for about 5 years or so, and then I got into 3D animation. Actually looking to get into games before I got into movies. And then my wife found a school in Edmonton called Dev Studios at the time. I think it's called Pixel Blue College now. And I went there, took their course, supplemented all my education because, they never teach you enough in these schools to actually do your job. So you have to, in the internet back then, there wasn't a lot on there about visual effects and CG and all of that stuff. There were probably about 2 or 3 websites you could go to and talk to people and figure stuff out. But then I did that, and then the school actually had a contract to do a documentary for Discovery Channel through Michael Jorgensen and Myth Merchant Films called Secrets of the Dinosaur Mummy. And I impressed him, and then he gave me a couple more jobs after that. And then I came to Toronto after Mr. X hired me as an asset artist. And that was kind of the beginning of my film career. That's when I started on that film behind me there. That's the first one I actually worked on a film on, is Resident Evil 4. So, and then it just took off from there. I just, put my head down and got to work, and now I'm the overall visual effects supervisor on Foundation for Apple. So, yeah.
So were you always interested in, like, even though you didn't plan on going into it at the beginning, were you always interested in film? Was that always something that you enjoyed growing up?
Oh yeah. I mean, I love film. I've always been a big fan of film. Growing up, actually growing up, I wanted to be an animator at Disney. When I was in my 9, 10, 11-year-old brain. And then from there, I just started watching. Like, there was an old documentary that they used to play. I think it was on CTV or something, called Movie Magic, which had a bunch of, like, how all the special effects are done and how all of the behind the scenes works and all that stuff. So, but yeah, I'd always had an affinity for film and storytelling. I used to read a lot, so and then it was an easy transition to make into film, and now I'm in love with it and wouldn't do anything else. So
Now I gotta ask you a little bit of a topical question. And
Okay.
although you have not worked on any Marvel projects specifically, there's been a lot of controversy recently around Marvel projects and the I guess abuse of the VFX artists on those projects. And I wanted to know your thoughts as a professional on this controversy, and what your view is.
My view is that there, this is a systemic problem with the industry, with the visual effects industry specifically. We are a very competitive bunch, and being that everyone will continually, battle each other instead of coming together to unionize or to kind of fight back against some of the things that happen on a daily basis to us in post. Now, I've been on the show that I've been on has been very, very VFX heavy. Foundation I was the second hire on the show after Michael Malone, who was the producer on the show. Of course, behind David Goyer and everybody else. But we have on this show, we kind of have a special relationship with all the directors, with all the other departments, with everyone else, in terms of how we work, because everyone understands on this show that we touch everything that they do, whether it's costumes, makeup, cinematography, even even the way that the directors want to frame a shot or block a shot. If they're not shooting into the set, we have to do a set extension. So we'll sometimes go and say, hey, you guys, if you move the camera, it's going to help us out immensely. And then we can spend the money on the shots that actually matter, like your, giant space shots or something like that. So, and we developed that, like we're done. We wrapped season 2. We developed that relationship with all these departments on season 1. And it's continued, and we've had, visual effects has had a very important role on this show, and we have a seat at the table with the creatives, which is very important. And I think it's more important now than it's ever been, especially with the way that these big shows work, because everybody wants tentpole visual effects, but they don't necessarily know how to get them and how to execute that properly. So I look at the Marvel situation, and it's really a Disney situation, being that they're the parent company, and just looking at how they how they organize things and how they get things into their pipeline. It's sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. I know a lot of artists who work on those shows and love them, and I know a lot of artists that have had a bad time. So, but we're a new generation of filmmakers coming up. I mean, there's a lot of people who are a lot more tech savvy than the predecessors, and that's always been a problem for visual effects, is that the people who know how to do it, and the people who are running the show don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. So I think with a little bit more education and a little bit more time, we're going to be able to make a bit of a difference there, and make it a lot easier for people to work in visual effects. But COVID and the situation we're in right now has led a lot of people to reassess their lives. A lot of visual effects artists left the industry because they're like, this is silly. Why am I breaking my back for all of this and spending hours and hours and hours in a chair just grinding through shots when I could be at home. So it's been an eye-opening time for filmmaking and visual effects in general. So I hope that answers your question. But
Yes, it does, definitely. Now, are you a fan of superheroes just in general?
yeah, I grew up reading comics. I was a big fan of the X-Men and Batman. So some more obscure ones, like when Image Comics came out, the Max. That was one of my favorites. But yeah, I do like the lore of superheroes and how they kind of replace the old stories and everything else. But even guys like Neil Gaiman or David Goyer, who I'm working with now, that's something something I never thought I'd be able to do. So it was great to work with those guys and be able to do that. But yes, I do like superheroes, and we talk about superheroes a lot.
So now, how does it feel to be nominated for an Emmy?
It's a bit surreal. I was. It's the first show that I've done on my own foundation. It's the first show that I've been, kind of led. So it was a good. I mean, I had led. I was a supervisor on shows before, but this is the first time I haven't had an overall supervisor above me. So it was probably not the right show to cut my teeth on, but it was the hardest show available to me at the time when I wanted to make this jump into production side visual effects supervising. So I had a mentor. His name was John Swallow. He told me, do what's going to scare you the most, because you'll regret it if you don't. So I took foundation, and we went to Ireland and started that, and then it's just been wild. But yeah, it's a bit because we got nominated and won the VS award for best visual effects in episodic, and that was real. None of us thought we were going to win. And then that happened, and then now we've got the Emmy nom. So it's nice to have that validation, but it's also it's all a popularity contest most of the time. So I'm happy to be doing what I'm doing even without the awards and accolades and all that. So it's a nice surprise, but I don't pine for awards.
So now, despite that, are you still very nervous as to who's going to win?
No, I mean, I would be shocked if it wasn't. I think because Stranger Things is in the zeitgeist right now, they probably have the best chance of winning because it's now into overall voting. But who knows? I mean, there's a lot of good visual effects in those other 4 shows, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
How did you find out that you were nominated?
Well, prior to being nominated, you have to actually send in reels, and the studio sends in before and afters and all of that stuff, so that you can get nominated. So we made it to the short list, which is there's like, I don't know, there's like 20 or 30 shows, and then the Academy members vote on that. So we knew that we were at least in contention there for the votes, and then we just I think my producer Addie Manis emailed me and said, "Hey, we got nominated." So that was it.
What was your initial reaction? Was it like shock or excitement or anything?
I was in the middle of something, so I was like, "Oh, that's great," and then I didn't really think about it until later, because it was, when you're in production, you all that stuff is nice, but you just kind of have to push it to the side and wait for things to settle before you can actually take stock of what just happened. So.
And then it sunk in, and you're like, "Oh, I just did that."
Yeah. So I had to, emailed a few people, and a few people emailed me or sent me text messages, and that was it.
That's crazy. I can't even imagine, I can't imagine just pushing that to the side even just for at the beginning. That's kind of crazy.
Oh. No, I mean, it's like I said, it's the work. Yeah, I had one of my other mentors, Dennis Berardi, used to say, "You're only as good as your last shot." So if you're not paying attention to what you're doing on set or in post, you can hurt your own reputation if you're not paying attention to what you're doing at that time. So if I would have just gone off to the side and started, jumping up and down and screaming and woohooing and all that stuff, it probably would not have been a good idea, given where I was and what was going on. So, but yeah.
And what kind, do you watch back any of the stuff you do? And are you overly critical of yourself after you finish something?
Yes. I'm very critical of what, some of it is really good. Some of it I still want to make changes. Like you never really finish a shot. You just run out of time. And which is a good thing because we would work on it. We would work on everything until it was perfect if we had all the time and the money in the world. But sometimes you just have to make compromises and make a decision based on what's what you have for resources at the time. So, but yeah, I'm very critical of what I've done in the past, and I don't like to go back and rewatch things. I tend to, I do on this show for reference, and some of the other stuff that I've done for reference. But I won't sit down and watch one of my shows front to back. Again, because I'll just cringe the whole time. So.
That's probably a good idea. Just because it'll drive. I'm sure you'll find something that'll drive you nuts forever. Just like wishing you could change it. So.
Oh, most definitely, and I've done that quite a few times, and you learn your lessons early. I mean, if there's a premiere or something, I'll go do that. But I won't sit down and on a Saturday afternoon when it's raining and watch Crimson Peak or something like that. So.
Now, when you watch other people's stuff, do you ever is there ever any point where you just see something and it's essentially a pet peeve that it drives you nuts?
I mean, I think that when I see something, I wonder, if I see something that like a technical error on a shot or something in somebody else's work, I just go, well, I wonder if they had enough time or if they just didn't see it, or like a lot of times, especially with how many shows are out right now, there just aren't enough people with the experience to go in and work on these shows. So it could be lack of experience, it could be lack of time, it could be bad direction. Because a lot of the times, I will fight tooth and nail to make sure something is photographically accurate. If something's supposed to be out of focus or something is supposed to be darker or lighter or whatever, I will go go fisticuffs with the directors or whoever is saying that we need to change it so they can see their visual effects or something. I'll just say, no, you didn't shoot it that way. It looks bad if we do that. And that's why people say, have a problem with CG and have a problem with visual effects right now. It's because it's a tool for filmmaking, but it can also turn your film or TV show into a cartoon if you let it. So, but that's just where I come from. That's my point of view, and I spend a lot of time learning about cameras, learning about lenses, learning about lighting. So I can be better informed when somebody's making those decisions and trying to change things that aren't photographically accurate, and getting them back to where they should be.
So when you kind of how active are you on social media just in general?
I mean, I don't post a lot about what I work on or anything like that, but I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter. I'll post stuff about the shows that I'm working on Twitter, but on Instagram it's mostly personal stuff. Like I don't post pictures of the sets or anything like that. I mean, it's Rory's my production designer is a little more active with that sort of thing, but yeah.
So, but what about reading kind of, because I think the biggest thing which kind of goes on the internet is the most criticized part of films and TV shows typically is the visual effects. Mm-hmm. Do you ever go through and read that kind of the criticism? Because people on Twitter have so much to say about every little topic.
Of course. I mean, yeah. I mean, I should say that I read a lot. I don't post a lot, but yeah. I mean, I read all that stuff, and it's good. I think it's good to know what people are saying and what people are complaining about, because a lot of times what I find is that they'll complain about something, but they won't understand why they're complaining about it. And depending on the show, it could be like I said, could be the lack of resources or lack of time, bad direction, that sort of thing. But other times it is just bad visual effects. There are instances and things like I just want to, if if you can get people to shoot as if something was there, as if because that's a lot of the problems with visual effects is everybody just puts a giant softbox up because they don't want to light for what's going on, and they'll just put a giant softbox up and then shoot it all flatly lit, and then that's what you get back for visual effects, and then it ends up looking muddy because there's no focus in the shot, there's no composition, there's no you're not organizing for what's going to be there. You're just trying to shoot something so that you can put something in later, and it can make things a little Melba toast or a little beige, as we call it, when you're looking at your shots. But what people say on the internet and what people what people say on social media, I don't disagree with some of it. If visual effects are bad, they're bad. And whoever's fault that is, it doesn't matter. It's like, a lot of people on the production side say something like, oh, well, nobody ever talks about being on budget in the media on a film. So, nobody cares about the budget. And then people will always kind of go back to that sort of that thing is like, nobody cares whose fault it is that something looks bad or something looks cheap or something if something is wrong, they're just going to call it out. And when they do, it's depending on it's I hate to use this as an example, but it's like when Game of Thrones came out, the last season, and everybody was complaining about how dark it was. And then I think it was Fabian came out and said, "Oh, it's because the cinematographer said it's because your TV isn't set up properly." But it doesn't matter because the majority of people can't see what you shot. And most people's TVs, I'm sure they're not set up properly, or they have motion smoothing on, which is the bane of our existence. And it's a horrible thing. But if people are saying it, take it on the chin. You don't have to defend everything that people say. I mean, you shot it the way you shot it because that's the way you thought it should be shot. And if people complain about it, they have every right to, because it's no longer, when something's out in the public eye or out in front of the public, it's theirs. It's no longer yours. They can say whatever they want about it.
Okay, can we do a little sidebar on motion smoothing quickly? Can you just kind of, first of all, go over what motion smoothing is for the people watching, and then kind of talk about why it's awful?
Motion smoothing is this horrible thing that all of the TV manufacturers have put on their TVs to help with watching sports and playing video games to get rid of motion blur and strobing. But what it does to film is it makes everything look like it's shot at 30 plus frames a second, and basically we call it the soap opera effect. It just takes away all the motion blur. It's like putting Vaseline on the lens, and everything's just super weird looking. And it's basically trying to reduce the algorithm is basically trying to reduce motion blur so the image is more crisp. The problem is that it doesn't work all the time, and it doesn't work well when you're watching a film or TV shows. It's like if I do this on right now, you can see my hand has motion blur. So if you were to look at a show and I was trying to get rid of that, it just doesn't work. Your eyes see motion blur if you do that in front of your face. And everybody's been trying to, like Peter Jackson, Ang Lee, Doug Trumbull, all these guys have been trying to push this higher frame rate, which has the same effect. Like if you watch The Hobbit, almost all of the CG looks like stop motion. And that's because if you watch the 48 frame a second version of it, even the 24 frame, because they didn't interpolate the motion blur correctly, it looks like stop motion, and that's because of the lack of motion blur. Phil Tippett invented something called Go Motion, which they used for all of their miniature work and all of their stop motion in the 80s and 90s up until Jurassic Park, where they actually put in the motion blur and tried to make it look more realistic. And then when ILM started doing visual effects and started really getting into that, a lot of their work was adding motion blur to stop motion. So reducing motion, trying to reduce motion blur and trying to get rid of that is a bad idea because it just makes everything look fake and bad. So
I completely agree with you. I hate motion blur so much; it drives me nuts. Whenever, because my TV will, it's like because it's apparently a default setting on my TV. I hate it so much because I always have to go back and fix it, and it's annoying. I hate it. I want it to go away.
Most new TVs have something called filmmaker mode. If you set it to that, it should get rid of it. But what I've been finding is that all of these TVs want to default back to those settings, and it's just.
I hate it. I hate it so much because I know the second it's on, and I hate it so much.
It's not a good look for films.
No, not at all.
I mean, that's why Tom Cruise and Macquarie did their PSA that everybody watched. I mean, we have to get rid of motion smoothing.
Yes, absolutely. Now, the other thing that people are doing a lot these days, and especially more, with younger people, I say that as if I'm not part of that group of younger people, but is this kind of use of watching things on their phone or a laptop or smaller screens in general. Now, as someone who works on TV shows, then I'm sure you believe very heavily in the use of using TVs to watch TV shows. What kind of effect is it when people watch things on their phones and they consume content like that?
Well, most phones don't have motion smoothing, so there's that.
That's fair.
Phones and iPads don't have motion smoothing, so you don't have to worry about that. But no, I think in the same way that you would read a comic or read a book, watching things on mobile devices it's fine. I mean, you should be able to. The only thing that I think is bad is when a studio production company or somebody gets it in their head and says, "Oh, they're just going to watch it on their iPhone, so we don't have to spend as much time on it, or we don't have to." You're focusing too much on the details because nobody's ever going to watch it on a big screen TV or in a theater. I think that's just lazy filmmaking. But I don't care, man. If you want to watch a movie on an old iPhone, like super small, or if you want to watch it on an iPad, or if you've got a home theater set up, I mean, you should be able to enjoy that entertainment anywhere and enjoy that storytelling anywhere, as far as I'm concerned. So it's just something that it's where we are with technology. So we have to adapt to it. And part of it, people really do think that there's a difference, or people see things differently when they're looking at their phones or looking at an iPad or looking at a TV. Their focal distance changes, but they're still looking at the same image. So, and if you have most phones are 4K now, the screen resolution. So I really, most iPads are only 2K. So it's kind of a moot point for me, and I think for filmmakers it's a lazy way to get out of putting the time in. So
now, when you're not working on VFX, what do you kind of do for fun?
Wow. I don't really have much time outside of that. I go to the gym, I play guitar, hang out with my wife. We go to restaurants. We like to eat a lot. So we tend to, we socialize, and then when I have time to myself, I'll, play the guitar, maybe read a book, play some video games, that sort of thing.
What kind of things are you like? What video games are you playing right now? Or books are you reading?
I just finished. I just finished Cyberpunk, which after all of the bad press, it's really good. It was actually it's really good reference for the show I'm working on right now. So, it's not in terms of the content, but how it was built and the artistry of it and all of that stuff. What else am I'm playing? I got a game called Control, which is from Remedy Games, so I haven't really gotten into that too much. And then in terms of reading, I'm trying to get caught up on all of the Asimov stuff. Just keeping that in my brain. Like I'll go back and reread things, just so that I can know where we are in the story. And then that's basically it. We watch some TV shows, watch some Stranger Things, or we're just finishing up Sandman right now. That's David's other show, so that's a fun show to watch. So that's it. Yeah.
And in terms of projects, what are you working on right now?
We're still on Foundation, and probably will be for the foreseeable future. Right now, it's taking up 90% of my time. So,
so nothing down the pipeline that you've kind of got your eye on or anything?
No, I mean, I usually, unless I feel like a job is going to end, I don't start looking again. Just because I like to stay focused on what I'm doing. And I do like having, it is a bit of a luxury to have one show at a time. So you don't have to always have something else in the kit. So, but no, this has been 3 years of my life, over 3 years now, because we started in March of 2019. So, we took 2 years to do the first season because of COVID. And then, we're just, like I said, we just wrapped on the season 2 shoot. So we're still going on that, but, yeah.
And now I'm going to ask you a little bit of a creative question, make you use a different part of I guess you do use a creative part of your brain a lot, but I'm going to make you use it now in this interview. So,
sure.
If I gave you a check and said, whatever money you need, I want you to make whatever you want to make, what would you make? What project would you work?
In terms of intellectual property that's out there right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would probably do Oryx and Crake, the Mad Adam series from Margaret Atwood. That's I don't know if you've read that, but it's a very good post-apocalyptic story about Toronto. So
I haven't read it, but it's definitely something I got to read now.
Yeah. That's a great show, or a great book, or series of books, I guess. Yeah.
And if you had to create something on your own that doesn't already exist, what would it be?
Oh, I have a bunch of stuff, but I don't want to talk about that stuff. It's,
okay, that's fair.
Yeah, it's I don't want that out in the zeitgeist in case somebody else gets on it. So.
Can you give me a genre?
Oh, genre? I mean, I have there's a dark comedy that I'd like to do. There's another sci-fi I'd like to do, and there's a little bit of a historical piece that I'd love to do.
Historical piece.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But yeah, I mean, I've done a lot. I think the only thing I haven't done is like a James Bond style action thriller. So, I've done a Western. I've done the horror side of things quite a bit. So, I guess Hannah was kind of an action thriller, but that was small potatoes compared to everything else that I worked on. So, in terms of my contribution, so
Now, if you could give someone who wants to kind of enter the industry some advice, what would you kind of tell them?
The first thing I would say is to pick something, whether you want to be a cameraman, or you want to be a director, or you want to be a producer, or if you want to be a visual effects artist. Look at those crafts, and or a costume designer, and then learn a skill that is applicable to each one of those departments. So if you're want to be a costume designer, learn how to draw or sew. If you want to be a camera operator, learn how to use a camera and what lenses to use when you're shooting. If you want to be a director, learn about blocking, composition, and story. If you want to be a visual effects artist, and I do say artist before supervisor, because you need that 10,000 plus hours before you'll be able to supervise anything. So become an asset artist, learn how to texture, learn how to model, learn how to animate, learn how to light, learn how to composite. But pick one of those things and focus on it like your life depends on it. Like don't and always challenge yourself. Always look at, okay, who are the best artists right now doing this in the world, and pick one or two of them and try to be better than them. Because that'll lead to you, finding out if you can cut the mustard, so to speak. If you can actually rise to the occasion and be as good as those people. So maybe you won't be, but and maybe you'll your strengths lie elsewhere. But you'll as long as you have I don't want to say a hero, but as long as you have someone you're aspiring to be like, in the industry, you'll find your way, as long as you spend the time doing it. It's never just going to happen. You have to actually take the time and do it. So.
And I know there's a lot of people who are looking up to you right now as they watch this. So thank you again so much for taking the time to come on. Is there anything you want to promote? Any social media? I have your social media handle underneath your picture right now.
You can. That's okay. You can just do that. I don't need to promote anything. Watch Foundation on Apple if you've got a free trial. If not, maybe buy it. I don't know. It's a good show. But yeah, that's it. And really, hope everybody enjoyed the talk and had a good time.
Oh, I know I enjoyed it. I can't speak for people who haven't seen it yet, but I can tell you I enjoyed it. And thank you so much again for coming on. And I really did appreciate it. And I know you're going to do great things, and you're already doing great things. And so, we'll stay in touch. Maybe you can have you back on at some point, like maybe when you're celebrating your Emmy win. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. The future is in the future, and that's why it's the future.
Exactly.
Anyways, Khalil, thank you very much, and let me know if you need anything. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.